Authenticity is attractive. If I'm looking for a job and I can come across some potential employer that's like out there speaking about their values, like that's attractive to me.
Yeah. When we're just down hanging out with the folks in the program are like, oh man, like come over to the house and let's watch the most recent like Broken-ish episode or whatever. And I'm a little bit like,
I think I've held almost every position you can have in this industry, from program director to owner and CEO myself. I've done it all, man.
marketing behavioral health businesses and services in rural and underserved communities isn't really marketing per se. It's community engagement.
It is.
We took an approach 2 years ago of how we would come into a community like Grand Junction, Mesa County, that had such significant distrust of providers, right? A lot of hope had been sold, a lot of big visions, a lot of, hey, we're here to fill the gaps and all of that, only for those companies to either go away, not do what they said, right? A lot of that. So the biggest thing we were faced with in coming into a community like this wasn't how do we get business?
Right.
It was really how do we establish trust within the community?
Yeah. Yeah, it was a different approach. I remember our first conversation talking about this was really like, oh, okay. It makes sense when you talk about building trust in a new community. But it was like, oh, but that is kind of marketing. But
Sure.
It's a vastly different, it's more like boots on the ground, guerrilla marketing, and mostly just like relationship building.
But the relationship side, like I remember those initial conversations we had, which is like, you know that the demand exists,
Correct.
right? And we know that the services don't exist, right? So it's kind of one of those, if you build it, they will come,
Right.
Which we never wanted to rely upon. So of course, you got to get the name out and have a website,
Yeah.
good presence and stuff like that, and relationships with professionals. But ultimately, we looked at it not only from the perspective of how do we create some trust with the community members that are going to be in need of the services, but also people that wanted to work here potentially, right? And a lot of people had been burned by prior organizations and things like that, right? So I remember you and I like strategizing a lot, and maybe it's important for us just to kind of talk through some of that first, is like, why did we take that approach that wasn't really marketing? Yes, marketing in the sense of build trust,
Right.
but ultimately it was a very different approach. So if you can go back to some of those early conversations, like, yeah, talk through some of that.
Yeah, I remember, coming on board here with Ava maybe a little over a year ago. So, and we just opened, a couple months ago. So I was part of this almost a year prior to us opening.
Yeah.
And you had already been out here coming to Colorado in Grand Junction for an additional year.
Yeah.
And I remember one of our first conversations was like, well, what are you doing out there? Why are you out there? You haven't gotten funded yet. What's the purpose? And I remember you saying clearly, like, I'm embedding in this idea of like, hey, I'm out there. Not only am I having conversations with people in the community to like really figure out what the needs actually are, which was brilliant. Like, of course, we have our preconceived ideas of what a community might need, but to go out there and to like actually get information directly from that people. And I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. And then the other part of this was, well, like, I want to start building trust and relationships. And to me, it was like, wow, that's incredible. 2 years prior to opening a company, you're out here doing that stuff. So I was kind of like blown away by that concept of embedding into a community. And I was like, well, you're already doing that. So like, how do we just continue more of that and take this somewhat different approach, especially in the world of like behavioral health?
Yeah.
There's a very like straight line. This is how you do it. You open a program and then this is what you do. And you go meet with all the ed consultants and you get the website and you get on Psychology Today and you get on all these other directory websites and you put a ton of money into Google Analytics and SEO marketing, and then, you know, maybe some social media stuff as well, but you're putting like a ton of money into it. And so one of our first conversations was, hey, I wonder if instead of spending $30,000 a month on Google campaigns, what if we don't?
Yeah.
It was like, well, maybe we don't have to. And I think that we were positioned in a unique place where that was an option. And maybe that's not always the option. I'm not sure. This is kind of like relatively unknown ground, but like early results are in, man. It worked for us.
Well, the results ultimately were that we have 47 employees. We never had an issue hiring an employee, right? So, but like that was one of those things we were trying to tackle was attracting people. And it was a lot of the concern that I heard in that first year coming out here was, how are you going to attract employees? How are you going to retain employees? It's been something that's been really difficult to do in Grand Junction, Mesa County, Western Slope for a long time.
Yeah.
That was right. We didn't have a lot of framework, we didn't have a lot of evidence to suggest it would work. But I think we believed that if we came and embedded in the community and put content out and built relationships prior to people ever coming in the doors, you know, a job description, whatever, we do that. So the evidence suggests like we had all these positions to hire for, and those were filled.
And that was probably the most unique thing that we did.
Yeah.
Honestly, I mean, we heard people being like, "Oh, it's probably going to be difficult to find employees in this area," which, like most rural places, is like a challenge that you have to kind of figure out. Plus, we're so far away out here in Grand Junction from some of the major metropolitan areas that it wasn't like really an option to try to go poach from other places and incentivize them to move. So we really had to focus on who are the local qualifying good job candidates. And you really have like the option as you get on like jobs.com, or you fly ads on Indeed and you put a bunch of money behind that. But then it's like, hey, I wonder if we can use this same idea concept we have for marketing for recruiting.
Yeah.
And that was content.
Yeah. Content really like allowing people to get to know us.
Yeah.
And getting to know who we were and our values and some of our story and where we came from, and right, being able to understand like, hey, if you're going to work for a company, get to know the people that work there and why they're building it and things like that. So it's like we do have the data.
Yeah.
The data I don't have off the top of my hand is what our retention has been. But if I'm going to put a pin in it, and you can hold me to this because it's recorded at this point, is I think we're probably close to like 98% or more people we've retained, that we've hired. Now, again, we only opened 3 months ago.
Right.
Most people we hired about 5 months ago, kind of pre-launch.
Right.
And we've had a lot of folks for 6 months to a year and more, right? So stay tuned for like what our retention data is on that. But I do believe that it not only was about attracting the people that wanted to work here and believed in what we were doing, but also has helped to retain, which will be just something interesting to look at. And we'd have to ask people and understand more about that. Is transparency, is accountability publicly, is all of this leading to people actually continuing to build confidence in the company over time as they work here too. So like that'll just be some interesting stuff we look at over time.
Yeah.
Is that piece. But like everybody thought it was going to be a problem. We had a vision. It's proven at this point to have worked.
Yeah.
You know, we'll have a new set of hiring, you know, maybe close to 30 roles once we open the homestead. So we'll get to repeat again and see, you know, can you hire upwards of 80 or 100 employees basically by just using content and letting people know that you have available jobs.
Yeah, I remember Ian being like, so what's the point of all this content stuff? You know? And it's like really hard to like quantify or really like explain something that's like our vision, our idea. It was like like unproven, new ground, and being like, hey, we think this is gonna do this, and then now being able to come back and be like, well, like it worked, and the concept was if we create content and we put it out there for everyone to see, and the content's not like super selly, like we're not out there, oh, Ava Health, this is what, there is some of that part of marketing, but mostly the content was like, hey, this is who I am.
Yep.
This is who our owners are. This is what we're about. This is our mission. This is our vision. Here's our values. This is what we stand on. Here's what we're trying to create. And just that was, I think, attractive enough for people, like that authenticity. I was talking to David about this morning, like authenticity is attractive. And if I'm looking for a job or I'm in the market for a new job and I can come across some potential employer that's like out there speaking about their values, speaking about their mission and their vision, like that's attractive to me as an employee. And we thought it might be. And it turns out like so many of the people that came in for interviews told us and told others here, oh yeah, I feel like I already know you guys.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's the big shout out to like behavioral health in general for folks is like get behind the camera, like be who you are. I know everybody's not like super comfortable getting behind, but at the end of the day, like even just an opportunity to get out there and share a little bit about your story, how you got here, why you do the work, like, it has really been amazing that, all these people came in and said, I've been watching your stuff for 6 months. I've been watching it for a year. I'm aligned with it. I really love this episode where you talked about this. And right, it wasn't about selling.
I've been waiting for a job posting so I can apply.
Yeah. And it wasn't about selling anything. It was just about like just being real and raw and honest. And if you go back to like any of the podcasts that we've done or that, it is, right? I mean, the first podcast we did was talking about like me completely failing and like ruining life. And then episode 2 is on, on your story and your life and how you got here. And like, I just think like that real content, right? And like, we talk a little bit about like having a little bit of personality, and like that a lot of behavioral health has just really become like beige. You know what I mean? There's not a lot of color, not a lot of flavor, not a lot of hip hop, punk rock, just kind of like there's a personality, like the people that work here that run this, like there's an authenticity about the things we've been through and what's brought us here and all of that. And so if we shift away, because I think, and I just thought about that now, it would be interesting to look longer term at is the stuff we're continuing to produce being watched by employees, continuing to build trust in employees, and that's why they remain here. That'll be another interesting data point for our boy Ian long term.
Right.
Is just the content not only attract people to want to work here, but then help retain over time, because there's just, again, we're continuing to put out transparent, accountable content about what it's like, and what we're building.
And I would say like early results are in.
Yeah.
Our biggest fans online are our employees.
Yeah.
They comment on all of our stuff. They like all of our stuff. They share all this stuff. And I think also what that creates too is like a sense of ownership to this thing, right? Like where our employees this isn't just their job, right? Now this is creeping into like personal life too. Their friends and their family are getting to experience the thing that they are committing 8 hours a day to go to for a job. And that was like something that I don't think I could have like fathomed would be a part of this whole thing.
Yeah.
That's the bleed through to other areas. And it'll be interesting to see how that continues to develop and how we can kind of track what that turns into. But yeah, and then you touched on the personality thing too. It's like, dude, talking about the industry, man, what a missed opportunity for so long. And it makes me think, like, how did we get here? Like, how did we get to a place as an industry where it is so beige, where there is like a lack of people on camera sharing? Because when you think about like addiction and mental health, dude, like some of the craziest stories, some of the most interesting people I've ever met work in this industry.
Yeah. For sure. And I watch companies like Jaywalker, for example, who right now, let's shout out Jaywalker, Rob, Stefan, Casey, all the homies, like,
Yes, sir.
are starting the content, and they've been doing the content now for a few months. And like, right, it's watching companies like Jaywalker who do have a personality.
Yeah.
Like people know Jaywalker like has a brand, has a reputation. It's adventure, it's outdoors, it's young men, it's this. It's like there's a sense of pride, right,
sure,
in that, right? And so it's like now, like that ability to bring that to the forefront, right, and connect with more people and attract more employees, attract people to want to be a part of that. And it's like more and more companies have the opportunity to do that. But yeah, it's like we got to step up and actually like be ourselves.
Yeah.
You know, and stop like acquiescing to the norms of the industry or healthcare, or like, well, it's just a hospital.
Right. Right.
It probably doesn't have to be just a hospital. Now, I don't have any expertise in that. So like, let's actually shift gears back to
For sure.
behavioral health. But you're right, like so many interesting people, so many interesting stories, why the people work in the organization, all that. And like, how do you start to create more personality that's really attractive for people? And I know that's been something important to you since I've known you. It's like attracting people to recovery because there's personality, because there's color and flavor and some hip hop, punk rock, just like against the norm of what it is.
Well, I remember early on, like, started in this industry as like a peer support guy, doing transports while working to become a counselor, a credentialed counselor. And I remember early on interning for others, getting my intern hours and watching them work one-on-one with patients. And just, I kind of felt like, like, you know, all the things in the book, you know the 12 core functions, and you know how to like, but there's no realness. And in my experience, just in general in humanity, like being real gets you way further in life than anything else. And then especially working with like those who have the affliction of addiction or mental health issues, like, yeah, man, there has to be some of that. And I think the thing that made me a great counselor, and at times like was a barrier for boundary stuff that I had to figure out, was just being raw, real, and trying to be more attractive. Like, hey, like, let's do this.
But that's what leads into the idea of like then how we structured your role.
Yeah.
Right. And it was like, well, what's really the role, you know? And so, you know, we started with, all right, how do we connect with the community? It's like, how do we build trust? How are we doing all this stuff? And it was like, you know, the gifts and the skills, right, that you talk about is that traditional, similar to me, like I was never going to ultimately be a counselor because it was really going to limit like my ability
100%.
to connect with people in these different ways. And so I had to look for a different path, and it's like community engagement.
Yeah.
Right. So, okay, then what's that like? And, you know, I think that's one of these pieces also when we look at like this community that the data shows, and I'll say the data and then we can talk more about like the role and what that ended up looking like and how you and I split things up. But, you know, in our first 90 days of taking phone calls, we had 168 qualified referrals to come in.
Yeah.
Right. With, again, our marketing spend was build a website, right?
Yeah.
Obviously your role, some of my role,
Yeah.
all this, but it was really about build, right? The buzz, build community, build relationships. And we looked at that from everything from city council and stakeholders and first responders and all that, all the way down to like literally connecting with folks on the street who were unhoused, all of this, which became some of your roles. So I guess just like talk a little bit about like the role and how community engagement has really come together over time for you.
Yeah, I remember some of our first conversations. We've worked together for so long that we have the ability to communicate where there's like there's nothing wrong that you can say between us. So I remember when you were like, hey, I'm doing this thing, you're going to be CEO. First and foremost, I was like, yes, you know, because like that's who you are, and I know you've had some past experiences where maybe that wasn't something you thought about going into again, but I always knew that that's where you'd be. And so I immediately wanted to work with you again. However, I was very clear. I've been working in this industry long enough at so many different positions. Dude, I think I've held almost every position you can have in this industry, from program director to owner and CEO myself, to support staff, to transport, to counselor, to case manager. I've done it all, man. And like, I love that I have that vast experience. And the greatest part is it's allowed me over time to learn what I'm good at and what I'm absolutely not good at. So one of our first conversations, you were like, hey, I'm trying to explore what this role would look like. You'd be like, hey, what about this? I'd be like, nah, like, absolutely, I don't want to do that. You'd be like, okay, what about this? I'd be like, yeah, maybe we can do something with that. So we really created a position that I don't know previously existed, and then that came with the name Community Engagement Architects, the very first here
And best.
and best. Shout out to ChatGPT. And I remember coming to you and being like, what about Director of Magic? And you were like, nah, man, like that's too Disneyland. And I was like, all right, back to the drawing board. But the idea was always like, yes, it's going to be marketing, but mostly what it is being kind of like that spokesperson and bridge for the people, for the community, for potential clients, for referral sources, for partners, like for everyone, And that's what I've found to be like my gift in this, is that I also thought too a lot recently. There was a question that was asked like, hey, is it more performance or like authentic? And over the years in my career, I think I've struggled with that, at showing up in a specific role sometimes as the CEO. Like, there's certain things you gotta do and there's certain expectations of you. And that's never been like a place of comfort for me personally, like strict guidelines and expectations. What works best for me is authenticity and being able to kind of be fluid. So one of the conversations we had was, hey, I want to be able to like do my thing. Like, I'll have responsibilities and there will be some expectations, but the guidelines, let's get away with that, right? What's the goal? The goal is to tell people about the work that we're doing here, share with who we are with others, build and establish good relationships, and be a bridge for the community and the clients. I can do that. And being able to have the support of you and everyone here to be like, cool, let's kind of just like let Rom do his thing, I think has been for me like so fulfilling. And then I think also it's worked.
Yeah. And if we talk about like the results of some of that, it's been that, right? Like, you've literally connected with folks who have been like on the streets.
Yeah.
That then have decided they would like to admit to the program.
Yeah.
Then they admit, then you see them in the hallway and you're like, yo, what's up?
Yeah.
And they're like, there's, again, like we talked about with employees who have gotten to know us prior to applying for a job and getting hired and all that. We've also seen the same thing with our clients who have said, I've been checking out your podcast. Like, let me see the pod studio. And like, oh yeah, no, I watched this thing that you guys did. Or, oh, I saw this video that you did over here. And that trust thing then became real with the people we were trying to attract in to build that trust with ahead of time as well. Right. And so like half of the conversations I know that you and I have when we're just down hanging out with the folks in the program are like, oh man, like, come over to the house and let's watch the most recent like broken-ish episode or whatever. And I'm a little bit like, I'm like, cool.
You guys should watch it. Yeah, I don't want to be there. That seems a little.
But it's like even when they're in programming, they've identified that what they're doing is as a house one night a week, they're actually throwing on YouTube and like checking out some of the content and like that they're resonating with it and vibing with it. And And so it's like that same thing, it'd be interesting to like track over time and see like how many of our folks, like while they're in programming, are continuing to like watch content, continuing to do that, and actually then continuing to build more and more trust in what we're doing, because they're seeing us talk about these things publicly, but then they're also experiencing that care being delivered and what we're talking about being delivered too, right? So it's like there's two things that now we've covered, which is like employee side, checkbox, and then clients coming in and feeling like they know us and they know what we're about and they want to be a part of this, and they believe in what we're delivering. And like that's been a really interesting thing that I don't think I could have.
No,
I think we would have said like, yes, like that's ultimately a goal.
like we hope. Yeah.
But then how do we do it? And it's only going to be a personality similar to yours. And there are other people like that in our community, which is really cool. Folks that are doing like the community outreach stuff, like
100%.
in the trenches work.
Yeah.
But they're doing it a bit more from the perspective of they're working in environments that are catering to the unhoused population. They're trying to build bridges into the community, help people with shelter and housing and all that stuff. But like, as the behavioral health organization, I think you've really connected with and vibed with a lot of those folks too.
Yeah.
And like, how do we build that bridge and build some trust that there is somebody that they can come into and have some trust in?
Yeah. I mean, in Mesa County, there's so many great people who are working for these different organizations who are out there, like Philip, man, like he's out there going into homeless camps, man, and he's developed a relationship with these guys where they're like, they love to see him come down now, and provide services. And it's like, cool, how can we all kind of come together and solve these problems? And I think where I have the benefit is kind of that free range and support from leadership here to be like, hey, if you need to show up and do this or be over here or here, cool, you have the flexibility.
Yeah.
Where like traditionally for like an outreach coordinator, it's very specific. Here's your role and here's your guidelines. So I think that's another thing. I just want to like shout out to you and the rest of the owners here for being able to kind of provide me that opportunity and kind of see where this thing goes.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely had a big vision for the work that you and I do with the content, with the community engagement, because the other side of community engagement we haven't talked about is more the stuff that I did. So as we looked at like splitting up, like how do we really embed in the community and work together in that way? If you're working with in the trenches and the community organizations and the nonprofits and the resources and setting up activities and fun and meetings in house and right and all these things, right? There's this whole other side, which are, the stakeholders here and the emergency departments and the first responders and, the government and all of these things. And I think that we've had that interesting approach where out of the gate, it was like, look, if we cover all that, everything else will work itself out.
Totally.
Right? The providers will get to know us. And, the conversation for another episode is that everything that we did, I should have come more prepared with all the data to really show how this worked. But again, 168 qualified referrals in the first 90 days of taking calls, 47 employees hired, insane retention rates. Yeah. Most people have been with us for over 6 months. I think yesterday we said that there was 19 people that had been with us over 6 months.
Yeah.
And probably a big majority have been over a year.
Yep.
Clients coming in, having trust. So we'll continue to look at that. But that really works when we're trying to build trust within a community that needs to access care using Medicaid.
Yeah.
However, we ran into a barrier with that. So topic for the next discussion will be, yes, like this is a beautiful framework that at this point we have shown, we had proven, we can prove using data, this works.
Yeah.
We want to work in a rural community and establish trust, relationships, build that, referrals, stakeholder relationships, community relationships, trust within the community, the members that need services, check, done. However, if you need to attract commercial clients, private pay clients, because You may have an issue with Medicaid. Maybe you're not getting paid, whatever. There's a lot of things that can go on in there. This approach would have been something we needed to do, but we would have needed to shift gears slightly.
Totally.
Because there also is an issue when you go out and you build trust in a community like that. And then how do you deliver if you can't serve? So anyways, just an interesting topic for another conversation is
Absolutely.
this is a beautiful framework that we hadn't seen done yet, that we did, we executed beautifully, has worked really well. And then there's another part to the story.
There always is.
Yes, there is.
Yeah.
So I'll see you next time to dive into that.
Let's do it. Cool. Like, comment, subscribe, check us out, give us a follow.
Out here, sharing the real, the raw, the authentic, what it's like to build behavioral health through a little bit different lens, a little bit of personality, a little bit of punk rock. Here we go.
Inside Ava Health.
That's right.
Peace.